Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So we're here at the park with the FUAV Seraphi new GPS quadcopter that's fresh on the market. And what we're going to be doing today is doing a full flight test on this, going over the controls in flight and seeing how it performs, seeing how stable it is. Do have about maybe a 5 to 10 mile per hour wind coming from this direction, so we'll see how that performs in a little bit of wind as well. But if you missed it, I also did a unbox, inspection, and setup video on this previously, which I'll have a card pop up for you right here. So you can check that out on how to set everything up. But basically what we're going to do today is just put this thing through its paces, see how it flies, and go through the features like some of the fail safes and stuff just to see how it does. So initially what you want to do is you want to do a compass calibration. And so what I would recommend if you do have a gimbal on this thing is go ahead and just unplug this plug here so that the gimbal isn't trying to, the camera isn't trying to stabilize as you're moving it in all different axes. So go ahead and unplug this first, go ahead and power everything on, and then do, basically you just want to make sure that GPS is down and your sticks are basically, you're going to hold them in this direction here. The left stick's on the bottom left and the right stick's on the top left. And then you're going to see this light right here. It's going to go solid green. And all you're going to want to do from here is basically just turn it 2 times on each axis. So 2 times like this, tilt it up 2 times like this, flip it on this side, go 2 times on each side, just like that, and then go also 2 times upside down. And then go ahead and just flip it back over. You do have to do this within about 2 minutes. Then just flip it back over and just go ahead and set it down like this and wait till that light starts blinking again, and then basically your compass calibration is complete. So today for this flight test I'm also using this is the gimbal version of the craft, and I'm using an SJ 5000X Elite Edition cam with gyro stabilization. And I did a quick little flight test with this thing in the backyard, and I noticed that when I had the cam mounted right side up, you might notice it's upside down right now, but I had it mounted right side up and it seemed to be a little too heavy this way. So I went ahead and mounted it upside down so all the heaviness is kind of in the middle here with the lens. And I also had to put like a nickel, I just kind of double-sided sticky tape this nickel on the left side, so it seems to have balanced it a bit better. I was getting some weird like shake from side to side a little bit in the video when I took the video, so haven't tested it with these mods here yet, but I'm hoping that that'll kind of take out that little bit of shake. So also through my GPS experience with these kinds of GPS quads is it's really good to have kind of a backup little battery before you fly. Go ahead and plug it into the craft and let the craft kind of sit there for about 5 minutes in the area you're going to fly. And what that does is it lets the GPS kind of update itself with the almanac if it needs to, and it also acquires the satellites into memory. And then when you do plug in your flight battery, you will not have used up some of your charge, and it should acquire the satellites a lot faster. So go ahead and just bring like a little extra battery to the field, go ahead and plug that thing in and let it sit there for about 5 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes since I've had this bench battery plugged in, just to let the GPS kind of acquire all of its satellites in memory. So I'm going to unplug it now. And go ahead and plug in the normal flight battery, which is already installed. And what you're looking for when you plug this in is when you first plug this thing in, you're going to see the gimbal is going to kind of go through a startup process. So you want to let it go through all of its beeps without moving it. And then go ahead and let the gimbal kind of level the camera, and then the gimbal is going to have like a few loud beeps after it's all done. So you want to kind of wait till that's all done. So you'll hear the beeps. You'll see the props move a little bit. The quad's just initializing. Then you're going to see the gimbal here. It's going to kind of go and level itself. And then you hear those beeps there. That means the gimbal is leveled and it's ready to go. So now we can actually go ahead and fly. So just carefully tucking the wires in, making sure it snaps shut nice and tight. Of course you want to take off your lens cover if you have a lens cover on there. And really what we're looking for is, you're seeing this single blink here on the back LED light in the green, And that means that it has acquired enough GPS satellites to have a locked-in GPS mode. So when you do hover in GPS, it should be pretty stable, and then when you do the return to home function, it should land close to where it launched. So make sure that's blinking single. If it's double blinking, that means it hasn't acquired satellite lock yet. So you just want to be kind of careful with that. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the SJ cam. Start recording. You can see how it's recording with that blue light blinking there. So let's see how this thing does. Okay, so turning on the controller. And it should immediately be bound, so you're ready to go. So this thing has some cool functions. Basically, if for some reason you can't get the single blink on the back, which means it's GPS locked, you can fly it in non-GPS mode, and that means it's attitude mode. And that's with this switch flipped up to the top. So you can fly around, but you can't really trust the GPS if it doesn't have that single green blink. So if you do want it to come home and land accurately on the failsafe, return to home failsafe, make sure that light does have a single blink. So let's test the auto takeoff and landing. So basically, to arm the props, control sticks all the way in and down. So we are armed, and then this little switch here, as long as it's in GPS mode and these are armed, if you double click this back and forth, you can see how it's going to do an auto launch. Okay, so it's trying to maintain its altitude. It looks like it's only up about 3 feet. I'm going to pull it up a little bit more. There we go, that's about eye level. So here we go, we can see that the backlight is on solid. That means it's in GPS mode and everything's locked in. I'm just going to walk around it real quick. Now keep in mind there is a little bit of a breeze, and I am seeing that camera doing that little bit of a shake. So that's unfortunate. I'm not sure if this is going to be the best gimbal. But you know, maybe we can change the rubbers out of it or something and do something to make it a little more stable. So you can see how the height is fluctuating a little bit, maybe a foot or two, and that's kind of the norm for the barometers that these use for the air pressure. But we can see I haven't touched it since I got it this high, and it is hovering pretty stable. And then we can see that the gimbal control, we're going to go to the right, and we can see the camera will pitch all the way down, and then it just stops there. Then we can go back, and it will pitch back to the front. And you can go anywhere in between, of course. So real quick, I'm going to try the self-landing mode. So if you are in GPS mode, and you're hovering there, and say you have trouble landing, you're not really comfortable landing yourself, you can just flip this switch back and forth and it should land. So let's try that. Back and forth. So you can see it dropping. And it's going to kind of make sure it's going to land stable. Okay, woo. Panic there for a second, but that's kind of how these things are. If they notice that they're tilting, they're going to gain some more altitude, and they're not going to land until it's going to be pretty stable. Occasionally these things will flip over, and if it does flip over, make sure that you put your throttle all the way down and hold it there so the propellers shut off when they start hitting the ground. Or you can also go both sticks bottom to the back, right and left, and that will disarm it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a manual launch now. So I'm going to arm the motors. You're holding it there till it starts spinning, and then all we're doing is pushing up. There we go. Okay, and I'm just letting off, and it should kind of hover around where I let off the throttle and try to maintain its altitude there. So let's go ahead and try to fly around a little bit and then test the return to home fail-safes. So this is full pitch. So this one kind of reminds me maybe of the X380, how it's not entirely that fast, but that's kind of how these ones are to have a good GPS lock, they're not going to go too fast. So it is maintaining itself pretty good. It's definitely very stable. I'm going to go ahead and do a yaw all the way. See how fast it yaws. Okay. So not bad for this type of quadcopter. Now let's go ahead and do a punch test. Basically, how fast in GPS mode, how fast it will just shoot up if we just give it full throttle. Let's go down a little bit, let it hover so we can kind of see it. Okay, I'm gonna go full throttle now. Okay, so not super fast, but that's usually how camera quads are. And I'm gonna kind of circle and slowly pull the stick down to kind of lose some altitude. I'm gonna see what happens if we just pull the stick all the way down for throttle. Now, a lot of people say that some quadcopters will shut off accidentally, but I'm just gonna try it. So I'm gonna pull the stick all the way down. So it looks like it's pretty good at just kind of bringing itself down nice and smoothly without any problems. A lot of these quads, they come down too fast and you get that vortex ring state where it kind of starts wobbling and it can't stabilize itself. So this one seems okay, especially with a little bit of crosswind. I'm getting some pretty good, maybe 10-mile-per-hour winds, so it's doing really good so far. But we'll see how the camera footage is. I have a feeling it might be a little shaky, unfortunately, but we'll see how that is on screen. Okay, so you can see how it's locked in GPS mode, and it's trying to maintain. There's some wind coming pretty hard now. That's about 10 to 15. And it's still holding its position. It's a three-dimensional spot in space. It's holding it there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into attitude mode. You can see it dropping a little bit there on its own. That's just the barometer. Air pressure changes. That's kind of normal, especially with some wind. So we're going to go into attitude and we're going to see what happens. I think attitude on this one will basically put it in altitude hold mode, but it's not going to have any lock laterally with GPS. So let's see what happens. So putting it in attitude mode now, we're going to see it just start to drift with the wind. So that's basically, it looks like it's maintaining its elevation. So it looks like it is going to be using the barometer still. But the GPS has completely shut off. We see no green light on the back, indicating that the GPS is not using the GPS. And you can see it just kind of drift. And so let's see how fast it goes in this mode without the GPS. Faster, definitely way faster. Okay, neat. So if you did want to do just some kind of casual faster flying, you can turn off the GPS. Or say in your house you don't want to have that GPS because there's not GPS signal and you're doing some testing in your house or indoors, you can just shut it off and put it in attitude mode, and you won't have to worry about GPS flying into the walls and stuff because there's no lock. So that's great. Also, let's go ahead and try the lift test with it in attitude mode and see if it's faster. You can see how it was a GPS, kind of slow lift. Let me bring it down a little bit. Right about there. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it some lift and see how fast it goes up. Full throttle, maybe a little faster. Seems about the same. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and switch back into GPS and you'll kind of see it lock in. So let's go down so you can see that actually. So I'm gonna pull it down. I got my throttle all the way down. So this is the maximum descent. Letting off, and you can see how it just kind of stabilizes this altitude. So let's see, so it's drifting in attitude mode, locking in the GPS, and you can see it just kind of stop there, know its position, and then lock itself in. So that's the norm with these GPS quads that can lock their position. Okay, let's try a fail-safe test. So I'm going to fly out to the other side of the park there in GPS mode. I'm not even touching the altitude. Let's see how it maintains its altitude while we're doing this. Looks like it's maintaining it very well. So I'm all the way at the other side of the park. I'm going ahead and letting off. Oh, it looks like it's dropping a bit. Let's go ahead and get some altitude here. Okay, so right there we're maybe about 50 feet high. Just drop a little bit. I just want to see if it goes up when it goes into its return to home. Okay, so we're just hovering there in GPS, and I'm going to go ahead and shut off the controller. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have a specific switch for return to home, so you either have to shut off the controller or go out of range of the controller. So that's unfortunate. I really wish they would have had maybe another switch here that was a return to home switch, and maybe they'll implement that. This is such an early version, maybe it just doesn't have that yet. So I'm going to shut off the controller and let's see what happens. Okay, so we can see the quad raising up. It's turning. It's still okay. Now it's coming back. So it turned to face us, and now it's coming back. And let's see where it lands. And you'll see with this one, if I turn back on, it's not going to interrupt its return to home process until you click this switch a few times, the attitude GPS switch, and then it will rebind the controller. So let's see how it does just landing itself. I'm not touching the controller. So it looked like when it got back, it started going down. It did start to face, it turned to face the way it launched from. So that's kind of neat. I can see that camera vibrating a little bit. Okay, so it's trying to land itself. Woo! Okay, it knows it's tipping a little bit. There we go. So it landed itself and shut off its motors, and I did not touch the controller after switching it off, except just switching it back on to show you that it has no effect until you do this. So I just want to demonstrate really quick too, since we are not bound back to it, it did its landing. I'm just going to show you how the controller has no function on the craft until I flip this switch. So I'm going to try to arm again, and you can see how I have no input. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to rebind the controls. So you go, you should go up, down, up, and now we should have control back to the craft. There we go. So if you do have that return to home failsafe coming back and you're wondering why aren't my controls working, I have the controller on, just remember you have to switch this a couple times to regain control. Let's try the auto launch again. This button, this switch, just toggle it back and forth. Oh, okay, so it has to be, you can see how the attitude's not working. So that auto launch isn't working if it's in attitude mode. So you got to click down to GPS and then click back and forth. So there's the auto launch. So I kind of wish it would auto launch to a little bit of a higher altitude. Unfortunately, it's only going a few feet off the ground. So that's a little bit of a con. Well, it's kind of gradually rising, I guess, on its own. So with these barometric sensors for altitude, there will be a little bit of inconsistency on altitude. You're looking at a few feet just because of air temperature, air humidity, wind will also affect it, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I don't see any blinking lights. When the rear light here starts to blink, I think like 3 times, that means it's time to bring it in because it's on its low voltage warning. So No blinking on the back yet, so let's just go ahead and fly around, see how this thing does. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up kind of high. Okay, there's our blinking. Oh, it just blinked for a second. I'm gonna put it up here, kind of do a pan shot with the SJ cam. It looked like when I was giving it some acceleration, it was hitting its low voltage, but it stopped blinking. I'm just gonna kind of pan, see how this thing does in yaw pan. Slowly. And also kind of move the camera tilt a little bit while we're doing this, just to see how this performs. So I should have the camera tilted all the way down, pointing at the ground. Now I'm going to tilt it back up slowly. It'll be cool when I have FPV set up on this thing, and I'm going to do some range mods on this. So the stock range, it's indicating it's like 500 meters, about 1,500 feet, which isn't that great, but it's kind of follows suit with only 4 AA batteries that are in the controller, maybe 6 volts. Okay. So anyway, that's giving us a little bit of a pan shot of our surroundings. And I'm just going to kind of hover here, kind of look out towards the West Maui Mountains and see how stable the video is in GPS lock and just hovering. So I'll have that video kind of come up on the screen so you can see pretty much, whoa, watch out, butterfly. And the butterflies are really curious on quadcopters, which is scary. I don't want to like shred them up in the propellers. But anyway, we can see it just hovering there. I'm trying to just get some footage of the mountains on the other side of the island. Let's go a little bit higher. So this thing does have a failsafe. When it does reach its low voltage failsafe, it will blink, and then when it does reach its second stage, it will just kind of come down and land wherever it is, kind of like the X380 did. So it does seem like it's maintaining itself really good in its 3D space, so very impressive. It's doing everything it's supposed to as far as flight capabilities. And this one has the dual GPS, so it basically does the regular GPS satellites and also the GLONASS international satellites. It has the antenna that can accept both, and that's what the X380 has too. So it locks on to GPS really quick, and it also has a better horizontal precision for more GPS satellites in view. I've seen the low voltage lights blinking now. Gonna go ahead and just kind of hover it next to us until it goes into its stage 2 landing for low voltage, and let's see how that works. I think I timed it in my backyard and it took about, okay, there we go. So we're seeing a constant blink, and now it's coming down to land. I think it took about 2 minutes. So let's see how it does in a little bit of cross breeze and landing. This one seems pretty good. It seems to keep itself pretty stable and not flip over. There we go, just shuts its motors off. So that was a great test. So far really liking this thing. It looks like it might have a gimbal issue with some vibration, but I'm gonna try to tune that out and maybe put on my FUAV 3D gimbal on here and see how that works. Really happy with so far how stable it is. It's doing the job it's supposed to. GPS works very well. All the fail safes work very well. And you could see in the landing when I wasn't touching it, even with the breeze, it kind of kept itself from tilting over. So that's kind of one good thing to look for also in a GPS quadcopter. But anyway guys, let's go ahead and get back to the bench. If you missed the initial unbox, inspection, and setup, go ahead and check that out. You can click on it anytime. Up there, the cards should still be up there, and check that video out. And then I'll also have a pop-up for the the final pros and cons on the bench of this thing. And then stay tuned for a bunch of mods too. I plan to do range mods on this, FPV mod where we can do a long range FPV with FPV goggles and stuff and see how far we can push this thing. I think this is one of the ones that's going to be a pretty good buy for, it's going to be competing directly with the X380 and it seems to perform pretty well. So anyway, thanks for tuning in and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.